What if we could better understand not just what people say, but what their behavior, expressions, and body language are telling us, and use that insight to build stronger collaboration and connection?
Intentional and purposeful focus on building a culture of collaboration is the secret for leaders striving to make a difference. In building a culture of collaboration, Kurtis and Lorna Hewson will share simple tips, ideas, and strategies to take your organization's collaborative efforts to the next level.
Before we jump into the episode, remember to join our mailing list at jlinsiders.com. Every Saturday, we send out an exclusive video only to our mailing list, along with other templates, resources, videos, and much, much more. We also share upcoming events and opportunities you may not hear about anywhere else. Go to jlinsiders.com to become part of the JL Insider community.
Welcome to another episode of Building a Culture of Collaboration. I'm Kurtis Hewson, lead learner and co-founder of Jigsaw Learning.
And I'm Lorna Hewson. We're joined today by Dr. Bethany Bilodeau, an expert in human behavior with a unique ability to interpret body language, gestures, movements, and facial expressions through the facial action coding system. Dr. B holds a Doctorate of Arts in Leadership, where her research focused on behavior change, and she has a wide range of certifications and training in approaches such as mindfulness, ACT, DBT, CBT, collaborative and proactive solutions, and trauma-informed services.
It's always great listening to that get listed out. We are going to ask to break down some of these acronyms that we love in education, but we do know that Dr. B's expertise in neurology, trauma, and sensory systems has made her a sought-after voice nationwide, helping individuals and organizations move past repeated challenges to achieve lasting success. We're so excited to dig into this conversation and explore how understanding human behavior can deepen collaboration and strengthen our teams. So, welcome. Bethany, or Dr. B, to the podcast.
So excited to have
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I love the approach that you guys use and the work that you're doing in schools and all that's just fantastic. We probably could have cut that bio down and just said, she's a big nerd. And that's all
I love it.
Love it. Okay, so we have to break down when we see the acronyms, what do they mean for us? So ACT.
Acceptance and commitment therapy. It's a model that's used oftentimes with people who have panic disorders, and different forms of anxiety that are very intense, and it's a therapeutic model.
Okay. How about DBT?
Dialectical behavioral therapy. That's a different type of therapeutic modality where you're really working with the different emotions of the body. So whereas people are living in the body and it's not comfortable and things aren't comfortable, it's a really just a wonderful use for people who have had extreme trauma or have had other challenges in regards to things that they might be feeling like they're getting stuck continuously, where they're more in the body, less in the brain. I usually say that when I'm helping parents or educators move towards one discipline over another, by using those two pieces. I love EMDR too, and I've had some training in that as well. And that's eye motion desensitization and reprocessing.
Yeah.
Another therapeutic model.
There's a reason why these get broken down into acronyms. Yeah.
Great for people who've had some intense trauma and everything. And it's oftentimes a very short therapeutic endeavor. So people might go a couple of sessions or, even 5 or 10, and they see profound results from those things.
Wow. So
it's excellent. Well, the moral of this.
And I'm not a therapist. That's not my field either. So just saying that too. I get very curious, and then I end up attending a million trainings on these different things. And people are always like, "You're the one non-therapist person here," and I'm like, "Yep, that happens."
Okay, so
that's awesome.
Obviously, we can connect with this idea of just lifelong learning and wanting to learn as much and connect it. We'd love to hear just a little bit more about your journey to becoming Dr. B.
Oh, so I had a really challenging experience when I started teaching school in general. So I started teaching high school biology and earth science, and I really got to say I didn't know what I was doing. I tried to use really old compliance models with my students who were mostly at-risk youth, and that didn't go over so well. They ended up stealing everything, I think, except the desks and chairs. The desks were nailed down in my classroom, so they couldn't steal those, but they stole everything. My test tubes, my microscopes, my slides, absolutely everything was gone. Even my own personal stuff, gone. So, my theory as far as how I was going to work with youth and make that work did not work well. So I had to back up and really develop a relationship and really work with other teachers and pull in other professionals to connect us all to really figure out what's going to be the best for these students and what do they really need. And the resounding piece that rang through everything was that they needed to feel safe. They needed to feel safe. They needed to feel connected. And once we were able to establish some programs, before school programs, lunchtime programs, where they could really participate in those times and feel like they were being heard and people were watching for their safety, it was completely different. It changed the game of things, I would say, as far as how they were able to interact and excel. I had students who'd never passed a class before, like, I got an A on this, you got to call my dad. And I'd be like, okay. And I'd call them, they'd be like, this is a prank call. And I was like, no, it's not a prank. What were the questions?
Oh man.
And so that early experience, did it just continue to lead to the further exploration, the training?
Yeah, so I ended up moving back to the United States and I taught sixth grade here for a while, and I didn't enjoy it to the same level. And I think it was the curriculum restrictions, that there's just so much to have to stay on top of when you're an educator, and as you all know, it's overwhelming. And I had, after trying to stay in that field and stay on top of that and research and get more involved in the behavioral field and all that, I said, I can't do both. And so at that point, I said, I'm not going to teach anymore. And I just pretty much focused all of my attention on the behavioral field and started just working in that field, just exclusively. And that was about, I think, 30 years ago that happened.
Wow.
So not that I want to age us all, but.
So I'm just hearing through that first experience that the old adage that I'm sure others have heard at different points of, as a teacher, don't smile until Christmas, was really, really poor advice.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I heard that and went,
I think my mom might have told me that. She was a principal, and I think she might have said that, when you go in there, Bethany, don't let them know that you think things are funny or you're nice. They'll walk all over you. Okay, Mom.
Yeah, it sounds like so much fun. Oh, Bethany, I love that within that story you've talked about struggling in the classroom, but then going to your colleagues and posing the question to them of how do we support students? How do we impact their learning and behavior at the same time? And you have shared that collaboration often begins not with structures or policies, but with creating a sense of safety and regulation. Can you expand on why that's important and that's a critical foundation?
Yeah, because we can't be with every student all of the time by any means, or every educator. And I will say, in today's day and age, the educators are feeling just as unsafe as the students are. And so really making sure that they feel supported and welcomed. And one person's not capable of doing all of that. And so we really have to work together to create that scaffolding to help hold everybody else and take the time to be able to do that. And that's really hard in a school setting when everything's set on time and it's really mostly about academic performance. But if we don't look at the mental well-being and how are our teachers coming in? How are our staff coming in? Is everybody feeling supported? Where's our nurse feeling like they're at, and our guidance counselors, and utilizing them for the resources that they can provide because they're really vast. That's where we see the most change. The times when I go into school districts and I can do a training for the entire staff, and I know you guys can attest to this too, right right from bus drivers to the custodians. That's where you see change. That's where you see culture change. That's where you see the youth change. That's where you see everybody kind of moving together and operating from the same place. And you see progress at that point with all.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, this really connects into Amy Edmondson's work around psychological safety. And,
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's a physical safety, of course, but that's
absolutely.
psychological safety where you can be vulnerable, and you can be open to problem solving. It's not seen as a badge of shame to come to your colleagues and say, I don't know, but rather that we've got
Yeah.
the trust and again, that psychological safety to really move forward together.
Absolutely. And we look at that a lot on our own team, our staff of behaviorists. We sit down and we say, who has a skill in what area and who wants to learn more about these one area? Because we know we can't do it all. And we don't have that expectation of saying, you go out and learn about it and then share your knowledge. Or we'll figure out a way so that we can utilize your knowledge and have you help with those things and everything, and everybody can help each other. And we do the same things with our schools. It's really helpful to do that.
So let's kind of break down that idea of trust. And I know in your work with the behavior boot camp, and tell us a little bit more about that as you get going. We know that you've seen the trauma-informed and sensory-based approaches that shift those team dynamics. So I'd love for you to explain that the work that you do around behavior boot camp, and then what are some key strategies that you've seen or could suggest to leaders that can help reduce conflict and build that trust that you're speaking of? We'll be right back to continue this episode. Are you meeting with your team in the hallway, staff room, conference room, or at the back of a classroom? We know that physical space is at a premium in most buildings. However, it is important to consider the impact that your meeting space has on the functioning and well-being of your team. Download our free Leader's Guide for planning spaces for collaboration. This guide will help to determine and plan for the best space for your teams, including considerations that contribute to effective meeting spaces, a checklist to be used when planning the space, and other additional resources. Access the guide at bit.ly/space checklist. That's bit.ly/space checklist, all one word. Get ready to ensure your meeting space is optimally configured to have the greatest impact possible for your next team meeting. And now back to our conversation.
So those are really some simple things. And in the Behavior Bootcamp, which is our online training course, we usually start almost every time, and I start most trainings with this or somehow touch upon this. The biggest one is like the stance of safety. And that's huge because just the way you hold your body, people will often say, oh, you walk in, you must have a halo on, Bethany, because you walk in and the kid stops the fist fight, or they, stop that, or the teacher all of a sudden seems relaxed and that sort of thing. And it isn't rocket science. It's how I carry my body. And those things are unbelievably important. So a few key aspects that people could take away and actually use are: one, make sure your knees and feet are pointed at the person you're interacting with. That's really important because if the toes are shifted away or the knees are shifted away, even though the person can't tell you, they'll say they didn't have time to talk to me, or they were too busy, or they were thinking about something else, or they weren't really present. And it's not that the person wasn't, it's that their body language indicated it. And most people can't say why that's true.
Yeah.
Another really important thing is to make sure that people can see the hands. That's extremely important, especially for youth. If they can't see your hands, they're oftentimes very uncomfortable or nervous. And with being able to see the hands, I would say they need to be able to see the thumbs. The thumbs lifted indicates confidence from the other person. So if I walk in and my thumbs are slightly lifted, someone automatically says, she's going to keep me safe.
Interesting.
Doesn't matter what the scenario is, and they don't know why. They just know this person looks like they've got a lot of confidence. They can keep me safe. Whether or not that's accurate is, is to be told, but the thumbs lifted indicate that. Another portion is to tilt the head to the left, and it's your left, not their left, mirror image. So you tilt the head to the left, and what that tells the person is that you're empathetic, that you're there for them, that you can connect with them. If you tilt it to the right, they're going to think that you're intelligent. So I don't need to be smart. I just need to get my feels on. So, so we tilt it to the left. So if I'm talking with an administrative team or school board or something like that, I probably tilt it a little to the right. But if I'm working with a teacher who says, I don't know how to deal with this behavior, I am scared to death this kid's going to hurt someone or hurt me, then I tilt my head to the left.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's just really simple things. I personally keep my mouth a little bit open, even though we always want to breathe through our nose. I keep my mouth a little bit open, and the reason why is because I've got these fun lines that we all get as we progress in life and get more experience. And if my lips are together, it looks like I'm slightly frowning, and they can pick up on that. And most everybody knows this. They'll pick on that and say, "Oh, she doesn't like me," or she doesn't trust me or something like that. So keeping that mouth slightly open helps to make sure that they trust you and they feel comfortable with you and they can really connect. So all those things just help a little bit more. And usually if I just walk into an environment where someone's struggling, within a few minutes, they've told me why. We've kind of talked through it. We've figured out what other resources they might have and a plan on how to connect with those resources.
This is fascinating. We had a previous podcast conversation with a person by the name of Grayson James, and he had talked about the idea that when you're collaborating, don't focus on the others, focus on the self. And that's really what you're saying there too, is focus on how you're presenting yourself. Because sometimes we get into collaborative situations and go, well, we could collaborate more effectively if Lorna would just be more receptive, or Bethany would be more open to all of our ideas. But this is no, focus on yourself and how you're saying not just how you are verbally communicating, but physically communicating.
Physically, it's huge. I mean, most of the time I'm not even talking. I'm just walking into the environment and trying to assess what's going on. So I'm trying to reduce the sensory stimulation as much as possible, whether that's shutting off the overhead lights or removing something that might be moving in the room. That's a big one, because when we're stressed, we're tracking motion. So we're very attuned to that. So if you've got a clock going and it's an old analog and the hands are moving, that can even be a huge distraction. So reducing those things as much as possible. And a lot of times people don't think about those simple things. They think about the big things like, oh, there's another person screaming in the room. Yeah, we track motion and sound. So they'll say, oh, can you step out into the other room or something like that if they're talking loud. But it doesn't oftentimes present itself to say even things like the Promethean board projecting something that's moving. That can be helpful. It can be a helpful distraction, but if it's moving really quickly or something like that, or if they move quickly, like I always say, when someone's watching you, you move really slow. When they take your eyes off you, that's your opportunity where you can move quickly, and we never chase, but we always somehow stay up with the person eloping from the building, which is miraculous. But the reason why is because when they're running away from us, as soon as they turn, we're walking relaxed as can be. But as soon as they turn and they're running, we sprint ahead to catch back up.
Oh,
but you don't ever look like you're chasing.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, Bethany, are all of these in your behavior boot camp then? All these strategies?
Yeah. All these techniques we break down and we talk about how to do them and the easiest ways to do them with your body and to get in the practice of doing these different things. I mean, there's lots of different little body things that we talk about, little different sensory tools. The other one that's a big one that we use is putting pressure on the stomach, because most of the serotonin's made in the gut, not the brain. And so a lot of people are deficient in serotonin, and that's for a variety of reasons: lack of sleep, lack of quality vitamins and minerals, because it takes a lot of vitamins and minerals to make serotonin, gut imbalances, all of those sorts of things that impact serotonin. And so we'll often say to people, have them store their bags under their desks or their water bottle or something like that. So they have to bend down and put pressure on that stomach to get those things out. And that will give them a little bit of a serotonin boost and allow you to actually instruct for a few more minutes before you kind of lose them to something else.
So I'm curious with this, Bethany, if you're coming in to work with a challenging situation with a student or a staff member, or working with teams, it kind of sounds like one of the first steps is almost like a environmental audit in a sense. Is have I
Yeah, a lot of times it
got
is.
it?
Like when I'm setting up to working with students at the beginning of the school year, most of the teachers will say, come in and look at my classroom
Yeah.
and rearrange it the way that you think it's going to work best for this student. And we work together as far as like, what does the teacher need? What's going to be best for the student? How can we help the other students, even those that we may not be supporting, to make the environment work the best? And then I often work with them and I give them our cheat sheet. It's called our behavior cheat sheet, and we have it free on our website too. And it will say things like, if you've got a student walking down the hall pulling things off the walls, this is the reason why, this is what you do. If
Mm.
you've got a student who's tapping their pencil constantly or blurting out in class, this is the reason why, likely the reason why. This is an intervention that you can
Mm.
provide. And it's not your typical interventions. It's not, please stop doing that, or
Yeah.
don't let them walk down that side of the hall or something like that. It's like they need more proprioceptive feedback. Give them something heavier to carry from one room to the other or
Mhm.
something like that. Or if they're tapping their pencil, that's usually a telltale sign that, yeah, they do need a lot more proprioceptive feedback. Then some gum might help that particular student, or have them fill some water bottles. Waters are a natural regulator for all humans. So anytime you can project water, have the sound of water, utilize them filling water bottles or anything, you're going to help to get a greater level of calmness in that room.
So it's fascinating because the work that we do around helping teams enhance their collaborative efforts, lots of times we also take a look at the physical environment.
Yeah.
And when a team says we're having trouble getting some traction, we'll usually start at the easiest wins of, okay, when you meet, are you looking at each other? Do you have eye
Right.
contact?
Mhm.
We'll
Yeah.
come into some places where a team will be meeting in a classroom, but they'll set up in student desks and there'll be two people here looking up at the board where the notes are being taken, but then another two behind, and they can't physically see one another. And we talk about
Yeah.
just clarity of,
Mhm.
do you have an agenda projected? Do you have all of these simple little strategies? But it's kind of the little things that then,
It's the little things that make up the big
yeah.
things.
It is.
Always. Yeah. Is it always virtual, or do they sometimes meet in person? There's a huge difference between those things. And yeah, all those little pieces make such a big difference. And they make a big difference for the students, not just the teachers and
Mhm.
everything too. And all the people in the building. I mean, you can tell you've walked into classrooms where you're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, I don't feel like I should enter,
We've
you
walked
know,
into
set
schools
up.
sometimes like
Mhm.
that where you
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
within
You
10
come from the
seconds, you've
entry.
got a
Yeah.
feel for that
Yeah.
building. So, in our show notes, we'll seek out that behavior cheat sheet that you mentioned and make sure that it's accessible for people here as well.
That's so amazing, and such simple suggestions that can have great impact
Hmm.
They
on
do. Then and
people's
what we do is we really try to take problems that most educators are challenged
yeah,
with, and even most parents are challenged with for the most part, and use simple solutions that take
yeah.
very little time, because nothing wears someone out more than constantly repeating, please stop, please don't do that, I asked you not to, or trying to distract them constantly away from that behavior. It just gets very overwhelming, and it leads to a lot of burnout, both of educators as well as parents.
See, and
Yeah.
this is where we are such big believers that if you can have opportunities for collaboration that's happening in the school, no one person is going to have the entire toolkit of strategies
Yeah.
at their disposal, but collectively, oh my goodness, there's so many,
Right.
so many ideas
There's
and
so many things.
strategies where people can come. Have you tried this? Have you tried this? And
Yeah.
I might not be even regulated myself to realize that my reaction is actually escalating. Could I try five other, or sorry, forget five. Could I try one other technique that I haven't thought of yet?
Yeah, that definitely helps. Like I love it when I go into schools and they say, "Oh, we're thinking we might want to get everybody together and talk about scenarios and this and that." And I'm like, that is probably your best use of time. Have them come up with the scenarios before
Yeah.
you even get together,
Yeah.
and have them be able to go over that and talk about solutions to that, because no one solution is going to fix it every time. And what a great way for your teams to really connect and be on the same page, but also help each other, really help
Yeah.
each other through the process.
So Bethany, if we take that one more step and think about leaders in terms of working with their teams and understanding that, I mean, anytime we come into a school, leaders will say, well, I have this one team that we're really struggling with, how effective their collaboration is and how they interact with each other. How can having that deeper understanding of body language, regulation of behavior help those leaders to de-escalate and foster positive collaboration?
I think the big thing is that you can read how they're feeling and what's going on with them. And oftentimes it leads back to something else that they're struggling with. And it may not have anything to do with that teen, but it's something else that they're struggling with that's holding them back and not allowing them to be more successful. So I always say, like, empathy is the biggest thing that we need, because we've got to be able to uncover that. And in order for them to feel safe enough to share what that information is, and sometimes they don't even know, it's just through the process of interaction that we figure that out. But we are able to help them get to a better place as far as where they're feeling they're at. Because a lot of times, and I hear this over and over again, as teachers will say, there's so much to do. I feel so overwhelmed. There's so many things. And they're right. There is. So being able to really hone in on that and help them feel supported through that. Most of the time when I'm in buildings and stuff, I'm touching base with teachers saying, is there anything else that you need? And it may not have anything to do with what this particular situation that I'm here for, but is there anything else that you need? Is there any other way that I can help you? And for them to feel like somebody is just asking them that oftentimes gives them the strength to move forward to the next step.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, as leaders, if we can build that into our structures as well, or just our expectations, that it doesn't always have to be me. Maybe it's built right into our team meetings, where at the end of the meeting, we just go around and everyone just shares what's one thing that others could do that would help me this week. And it may be just as simple as check in on me on Thursday to make sure I'm doing okay, because I've got something coming up on Friday that's going to be stressful, I think.
Absolutely. And celebrate the wins.
Yeah.
I walked in to see a teacher this morning, and it's a student we've worked with for just over a year, and he's in the classroom doing what he needs. And she's like, I know I'm not responsible for his success. And I'm like, but you are.
Yeah.
You are responsible for his success.
Oh,
So are the people supporting him. Take the win when you can and be proud of that fact. You need that right now. Feel that and really be able to sit with that and say you're a part of his success. I'm like, you need to have that. And she said, I appreciate that you look at it that way. And I said, you need to take a part of it. And we need to all take a part of those wins, because there are so many other things that can pull us down. We've got to be able to really look at the things that are the successes and say, those are fantastic. And what were the attributes of that led to that success?
Oh,
yeah, you were speaking our language.
I was sharing this.
Data. I love it.
I was sharing this exact thing with high school last week, talking about when you start off your meeting, start with celebrations. And even if it's this student is coming to my class regularly, they're not totally regulated yet. I still have issues, but they're
there.
They're there. And then we flip it back and say, what do you think you've done that's led to it? When they go, oh, it's just a miracle, a flip switch, like something just flipped for this student, then we still keep pressing and saying, well, what do you think you did?
There is something.
And this one teacher came and said, the one part as I was listening is that also gives me validation. She said, oftentimes you feel like a bit of an imposter. You feel like you're not having the impact at different points of a day, a week, a year. She said, just being able to share, this is what I did that I think led to that success, and even having people physically in the room smiling or nodding, that might be all I need to know. Affirmation. I'm
and push them ahead so that they're like, great. Not all. My goal now is not just to have that student be in that classroom, but to actually produce some work.
Yeah.
and it takes them to that next step. And they so badly need that. The students so badly need that too. And it's you gotta, I used to be like, let's make an excuse for everything. I remember one time I had a foster child that lived with me for a while, and he used to have a tantrum every single day at school. They would call me every day and say, oh, you gotta come pick him up. Yeah, you gotta come pick him up. And I'd be like, wow, I must suck at my job because I gotta pick this kid up like every single day. And I remember one day we made the whole day without a single tantrum, and he's like, "We're having cake tonight," and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, we are
Yeah,
celebrating.
we are celebrating.
I mean, he had a tantrum the next day, but the next day after that, he didn't. So we've got to be able to celebrate all of
Yeah.
those successes along the way so that we can get there. Because sometimes it just feels like the journey feels too daunting.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's two things that contribute to that. First of all, we are so busy, and you've already mentioned how busy schools and classrooms are. And we just don't take the time to focus on the positive and the
Yep.
successes that we're having. So I
Small
think that's
steps.
one. I
Yeah,
think the other part is human nature, is that when we have challenges, that's where we target our attention.
it
And
excites our brain.
yeah,
That it
consistently
activates the
wanting.
prefrontal cortex, actually. It actually pushes more oxygen to the front of the brain when we notice something that doesn't fit or a discrepancy or a conflict. It activates our brain and gets it excited. So people are really, really good at that because they're like, oh, it engages my brain. It makes me feel connected and on task, and I'm not thinking about all these other things.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have to be intentional on getting to that space
Mhm.
of celebrating and paying attention to those successes.
Yeah, it doesn't happen by accident.
No,
It's through
No.
intentionality.
Yeah, because we can forget about that or cut those things due to time. It's
Yeah,
easy for
you
people to
can.
do that. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. So I'm curious, Bethany, for leaders that are listening that want to immediately strengthen collaboration, collaborative work in their schools to help support challenging students or um, other issues that they're dealing with, you've shared some great strategies around how you're physically communicating, how you're holding yourself up. What might be another one or two simple practical actions that you could see a leader taking tomorrow to really start reinforcing that culture of safety and trust that you've spoken about? We'll be right back to continue this episode. Are you wanting to take your PLC, MTSS, and RTI efforts to the next level? Collaborative response is frequently described as the missing piece when establishing highly intentional and focused cultures of collaboration and intervention that build upon and enhance what you are currently doing in your school or district. Collaborative response is a school-wide framework that ensures we are creating the best possible scenario for success for both our students and our staff. Just as you might have imagined, it is designed to ensure we collaboratively respond to the needs of each and every one of our learners, as well as intentionally grow the capacity of every adult regardless of their role. Download our free Overview of Collaborative Response article to gain an understanding of collaborative response, which ensures intentional alignment between layered collaborative structures and processes that put students at the center of the conversation, thoughtful and purposeful collection and analysis of data and evidence, and the development of school-wide continuums of support that identifies interventions, strategies, and accommodations to successfully support all students. We don't tier the kids, we tier the supports. Go to jigsawlearning.ca to download this overview article for free and begin learning about the power of collaborative response to transform how your school responds to the needs of all learners. And now back to our conversation.
I think the big one obviously is FaceTime. And I think so often this becomes more and more challenging because there's so many other things that need to be done and everything, but FaceTime is such a huge piece of it, and I think that's hard, and that's where I see great leaders that are really able to have a high quality of work satisfaction from their teams and teams really invested. They see their leaders quite often, whether it's they're walking through their classrooms or they're checking in periodically, or that leader is, working in the cafeteria while they're getting their work done or whatever it may be. FaceTime, I think, is something that we we value, but I think sometimes it's hard to say that we are going to do that because so many other things come up.
Yeah.
Well, and I think about this was one thing for myself as a principal that I became very mindful of is I was recognizing that someone might come to my office. Let's say I'm working on email or something and would give the, do you have a sec? And you go, yeah, but your hands wouldn't leave the keyboard.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
started to become really purposeful of when someone would ask that question, my phone goes over here, the laptop comes down, and we might even move to a table of I'm just really want you to feel that you've been seen and heard
Yeah.
during this, and
Yeah.
I will pause for the 4 minutes that it
Yep.
takes.
And oftentimes I'll tell leaders, I'm saying, even if you have a short amount of time, say to them, walk with me
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Oh, I love
Yeah.
go
that.
to your next location, especially if you have stairs. And I always say this, use the stairs because if you're working, if you have someone on your team comes to you and they have a complaint about something or they have an issue with something and you're walking up the stairs, usually by the top of the stairs, that complaint doesn't seem like it's such a big issue for them, or they've somehow come to a solution about it. And it's usually not anything that the other individual has said or contributed. It's really the fact of you get a little endorphins rushing and they're
Yeah.
dulling the emotional and physical pain of things at that point. So it doesn't feel like as big a challenge as it had felt a few moments before.
So
So utilize what time you have because, and be honest with people. I only have a minute or I only have 4 minutes, but come with me or go with me to this. And I do that a lot where people will come into the school and they'll say, oh, I want to talk to you about something. I'm like, that's great. Can you walk with me? And I bring
Yeah.
them with me where I might be going or something like that. We don't get
Bethany,
enough in our days.
I would love to
That's
hear your thoughts as well. I see more and more as I'm coming into schools, leaders with standing desks. I'm thinking of one high school where the principal purposefully had a standing desk out at the very front to greet, and she would actually, the day I was there, was asking just a simple poll of would you prefer sweet or salty snacks for the
Oh my God, I
students to
love it.
engage. Yeah.
not
Oh,
fun.
and what are your thoughts then of all of the leaders that we've been seeing frequently with the mobile desks, the
I think they're fantastic. We don't get enough movement, and
Yeah.
I'll be on. That is a huge contributor to a lot of the reason why we're seeing some academic challenges going on. 85% of the kids that are attending school are dehydrated, and they also do not get enough movement. What happens when you don't get enough movement? You don't get enough blood flow in the brain. What happens when you don't get enough blood flow in the brain? It doesn't go to the prefrontal cortex. You can't think, you can't learn. So that one educator, by doing that one activity of standing, one, those kids were in motion. So
Mhm.
they were doing something that was somewhat productive. She was also connecting with them.
Yeah.
That's huge. And she was asking them a question. So she was appreciating, or they then in turn appreciated, ooh, I like salty or I like sweet. Those release three neurohormones that are really important: dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Those are the three that prime the prefrontal cortex for learning. If you want to get your classroom to learn, have them appreciate. Hey, do you like dogs? Do you like cats? What's your dog's name? Have them connect. You just did that by asking them a question and have them do something productive. Can you pass this paper to your neighbor? That's all it takes. And
Mhm.
you've got at least 5 to 10 minutes of good quality academic time.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
And to me, these are all applicable then for a leader that then is working with staff team as well. How can we engage that?
100%.
It's so
Yeah.
funny when we think about the things that we see and know that work in a classroom that then we totally forget about when we then lead a staff meeting and have to stop and think,
We
okay,
do, because we're like, we're on an agenda. We only have
yeah.
Yeah.
this much time. And blah, blah, blah. Yep,
There's so many
absolutely.
parallels.
There are.
So, Bethany, we'd love to know how, for anyone that is listening that wants to work further with you or learn from some of the resources you have, and first tell us a little bit about your new book, and then
Oh,
how could someone get in touch with you? Where's the best place to go?
So my book, Ease the Pain in the Classroom, came out this past year in April, actually, and you can get it on our website at easethepain.com, or you can get it on Amazon and places like that. The easiest way to get a hold of us is through the Behavior Bootcamp, which is www.thebehaviorbootcamp.com. And we hold free trainings every week. People just need to hop on and sign up. You can hop up on and even do a one-on-one with someone, with one of the behaviorists. And we can go through kind of real easy scenarios and how to do things and that sort of thing. And our goal is really to make life a little less painful.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Bethany. This has been a fascinating conversation, and I'm sure that all of our listeners will benefit greatly from your suggestions and from your thoughts. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I love that the two of you are in the same screen too. So cute.
It's also, though, you can't see Lorna kicking me frequently underneath the table, so that also is
It's our secret.
All right. Wishing you all the best and hope that we can catch up again soon, Bethany. Take care.
Great. Thank you so much.
So, as we're reflecting on Bethany's insights, and I love when people can come on the podcast and say, here's a simple thing that you could do right away that's totally actionable. And she shared some really good actionable items that I wrote down, especially around that physical communication. But I often like reflecting on where we've heard similar messages and that. And we've had a few different guests that, when we're talking about building a culture of collaboration, really try and emphasize how are you individually, like that we mentioned Grayson, but there's been others that have said, it needs to start with reflecting on what are you doing before we start looking outward at what's happening with the rest of the team. And I love that idea of how are you physically communicating? What's being said that you're not actually
saying. Yeah, and that idea of very simple things that you can be aware of that will highly impact the interaction and learning between you and other educators or you and students, but just being able to be aware of those things. I love her messages too around empathy, that what you see happening, and we always talk around, behavior is communication, that there's actually something going on behind that we may not fully understand, but the way that a student is trying to communicate that is through a behavior. And for her, it's about taking that stance of empathy, that we're always in that place of what's actually going on, or are we really understanding the situation as we see it?
I think there's also a reminder here for all of us around visible leadership. And the idea of, as a leader, are you visible? Are people seeing you FaceTime? And I think that if I think of any organization, if the leader of that organization, whether it's a school division, or something that is not in the education sector, are people seeing you, and are you accessible when people have that quick question, that quick connection that you're looking for?
Well, and really to create, and we talked about that idea of ensuring trust in teams, but in order for you to do that, you need to have that relationship and need for people to see you in that place of empathy and understanding. And you can't do that just through emails or sitting behind your desk. It is about interacting. I love the idea of walk with me. Just walk with me.
Well, and I was thinking too of that, working with members of my staff team, but even with a student, to be able to say, all right, let's go talk this through. Come walk. Let's go for this little walk.
So many really impactful strategies. The other thing that she had talked a little bit about at the very end of our conversation, I wanted to dig in a little bit more, but but we were running out of time, is that how do we prepare students for learning? How do we prepare our staff for learning? And it's really about doing three things. She said one is to show your appreciation for them, to connect with them, and then to begin on a productive task.
Yeah.
So, which allows your brain, and she, of course, explains this so well, but allows all of those important things to be happening in your brain so that you can be ready for learning, and that will occur then.
Yeah.
I love it.
I want to wrap up and go back to this idea of getting up to walk. Episode
Yeah.
1 of this podcast
Yeah.
talked about a simple strategy we were using with our team
Yeah.
during meetings of a walk and talk question.
Mhm.
So I love her idea of a scenario, but what if we could be having opportunities where teams could go with a question or, like she said, a behavior scenario
Yeah.
and walk with it. Walk
Yeah.
with it, come back and be able to report out, to share.
Mhm.
A simple strategy, but that would encapsulate exactly what Dr. B is sharing there.
So make sure you check out that first episode.
Yeah. And it's pretty raw as we were just getting started.
Just
So,
starting.
so once again, we'd love to thank our guest, Dr. B, for joining the podcast, sharing her expertise. Make sure to check out the show notes where we'll link her website, the behavior bootcamp, and that behavior cheat sheet, and to engage with Dr. B if interested in a further conversation. We also, as we wrap up, have 2 requests. First, join or share our mailing list at jlinsiders.com. Through that, we share weekly content and resources that we know you'll find valuable. Second, please like, share, review, or subscribe. That helps ensure someone else who needs to hear what has been shared by Dr. B or other guests a greater chance to find it. Finally, don't hesitate to reach out. If you have any questions, you can go to questions@jigsawlearning.ca. Maybe you have a future topic you'd love for us to look at, a guest, or if you'd just like to connect, we'd love to hear from you. So, wishing you all the best as you continue to endeavor to build a culture of collaboration in your organization.
See you soon.
Jigsaw Learning, founded by Kurtis and Lorna Hewson, is a team of educators who work with schools, districts, and educational leaders to establish collaborative response to ensure success for all students. Because every child deserves a team.